Welcome, everybody. This is Conics 5, the last class in Conics. Applied problems, word problems. So really what that means for us is that we're going to be taking words, as usual, and forcing them to match our four forms: the parabola, circle, or ellipse. Hyperbola we're actually not going to do for word problems, but we could do it. They're just a little bit tricky, so I left them out. But let's get started. Let's see how we can take some information that we've been given on a page, sometimes very little information, and make it into one of the four shapes or one of the three shapes. So first of all, I'm going to just assume that you didn't watch Tom's videos for this. I'm going to keep repeating that you should watch them because they have important examples being done in them. But I can't force you to do anything you don't want to do or don't feel like you have time to do. I just can tell you what I must do to do well in this course. So let's get started. You binged them. Just put them on 2x speed and fly through it. Yeah, not bad. It's not quite as engaging as Netflix. It takes a little too much effort. Can't, fall asleep on the couch and it not matter. But anyway, let's get started on this problem. The swords that cross over Grand Hamad Street approximate a parabola. So it's saying that the swords have a parabolic shape, and we can see that. We can just look at this right now. We can see that this is clearly a parabola, or it could be said to look like one. It says if the base of the arch, the base is 65 meters wide, so I'll just say this is 65 meters, and the maximum height is 35 meters. So that height is 35 meters. Formulate or create an equation that could give the height at any point along the arch. So what it means is get the equation in the form of a parabola. So let's do that. First things first, you should definitely know by now what form this is in. You should know that this is definitely y squared form, because you can look at this. Oh, sorry, not y squared form, x squared form. Because it's going up and down, x squared form. And then you should be able to get the equation for that, okay? And that's the whole point of what we're doing. So let me write out the general form. It will be x minus h all squared equals 4p y minus k. So let me just let you in on a little secret here. If you want the equation for a parabola or a circle or an ellipse, you have to get just the missing pieces. You have to get h, you have to get k, and in this case, we need to get p. Or it's actually easier to go looking for 4p. But we're going to be finding that missing piece. If we find that, we solve the problem. We're done. So let's set this up. Right now, I see this parabola. I'm going to set it up as a math question. And in that case, I'm going to make the parabola so it's symmetrical down the center, like this. So that's the same parabola that I drew on the other side. I could, if you want it to be clear which one's which, this is the parabola really that I care about. And what important points do I know? I know quite a lot already, actually. And I didn't draw that quite symmetrical, so I'm going to cheat. It's a little bit better. What points do I know? I know the vertex on top. I know that point is, well, it's at 0, and it's going up some amount. We can see that it went up by 35. Okay, so that's the vertex. We know that information. Just give me 2 seconds. We're going to move the laptop over to my other laptop, my bottom. Okay, so we know that. What else do we know? Someone tell me. I haven't used this information yet. I'll help you along. This entire distance is 65 meters. So can we say what these points might be? Anybody alive out there? Or are you all studying as quickly and as hard as possible for the assignment? Oh, sorry, my other computer is apparently not working very well. So I'm looking at the chat on this. Yeah, 65 and negative 65, exactly. So this would be 65, 65 and 0, negative 65 and 0 would be those 2 points, okay? Now, let me try to summarize what I said earlier. We really only need two things. We needed the vertex to solve this, and we also needed, sorry, Ali, we also needed to get P, or more specifically, we're going to get 4P. And yes, you needed to do it in half. I got all flustered because my other computer got all messed up. But yeah, half of 65. If the whole distance is 65, you need to cut it in half in order to get half the distance. So that's 32.5 and 0. And that would be negative 32.5 and 0. That's because this distance here is 32.5 meters, yeah? Half of the total distance. That idea of cutting it in half happens a lot. It's very common in these problems. So something to keep in mind. Let's do this. We need to fit it into the formula that we have. So let's take this formula and write it down below. It's x minus h. H here is 0. So actually, I'll take it in two steps. So x minus h, h being 0, equals 4p y minus 35. So I was going to skip a step, but I changed my mind. Now that we have this, we can see that we kind of have a problem. We have x we need to look for, we have p and y. So what we need to do, we just need to substitute a point, because we have the vertex. We need the vertex and we need p. We have the vertex. So let's just put in some numbers to solve for that p value, or the 4p. And what I'm going to do, just to make it super clear, we're going to substitute in the point 32.5 and 0. Why am I substituting in that value? You know, why didn't I choose a different value? I've got 3 values to choose from, right? If you look at my parabola, I've got 3 values. Well, the vertex I actually have already put it in. It is h and k. That's why that they were replaced in the beginning. Why didn't I choose this point over here? Someone hazard a guess? Why didn't I choose that point? It is the same. The reason I didn't choose it is because it's negative. And whenever you want to, if you want to avoid negatives, you don't choose negative numbers. Because negative just kind of muddies it up. What if you square it by accident, wrong, all that kind of thing. So we could choose it, but it's just easier not to choose it. Okay, let's put in all our values. I forgot a square up here, don't forget that. So this is x squared. Sorry, it is x squared, but it's actually 32.5 squared. Square that. Remember, I'm solving for the 4p. And then y minus 35, well, y is 0. So really, I'm putting in 0 minus 35 here. And if you substitute around, rearrange this, what you're going to get is that 4p is 32.5 squared over negative 35, which is equal to, let me just make some of this black because I don't need it all yellow. What number does that give me? 32.5 squared divided by negative 35. That gives me negative 30.2. Negative 30.2. So we'll see a lot of these today. I hope that you're following. If not, you'll see more examples. Let me just recap why I did what I did. In the beginning, I had to draw a sketch to try and make sense of the points that I was given. I saw that I had a vertex and 2 other points that I knew the value of. So all I need to do is find 4p and I'll be done. I can make my equation. So I put in the vertex. I also substituted in one of the points that I knew that was not the vertex. When you do that, all that's left is 4p. You solve for it as a variable, and now we can write our equation. Okay, and I'll finish the equation. Finish the question now. So let me just move this around so I have space. Now that I have that, therefore, I can write my final equation. X squared equals 4p y minus 35. You might wonder where every piece came from. Let me just color code it. The vertex is this, which is 0. It doesn't go anywhere else. The y value of the vertex would be this, which is why I put it in here. Why I put it in here, yeah? And finally, the points that I have on my parabola are all blue, so they're already color-coded. So hopefully it makes some sort of sense. You'll notice that when we started, you could see the curve. You could see that it would have a negative p-value. But you didn't need to actually know that ahead of time. When you finish the question, it's going to pop out a negative anyway. So even if you don't know if it's negative p, you can kind of ignore it. It'll come out of the math. Okay, so that question's finished. We'll do 2 or 3 more like that today. Do you have any questions on this one? Nope. Clear, excellent. So, and it should be super clear if you already watched the video. I just wanted to make sure I covered it again. So I want to make a note, my Corona page. I was not doing so good with the old Corona lately. Okay, so let's close that. I just want to graph this because it says formulate an equation to give the height at any point along the arch. Well, let me put in my final equation. X squared equals negative 30.2 y minus 35. It looks like this. And when you finish, you can easily put it into Desmos like this, and you should. And you can check all your important points. So what was the vertex? 0.35. Check it. 0.35. Check the other point, negative 32.5 with some extra numbers. That's correct. And then 32.5 and 0, that's the other point. So I definitely made the equation that I was trying to make. That much is clear. The other thing that it mentions is, here is it says formulate an equation to give the height at any point along the arch. Well, that is the equation. If I put any x value into this, it will spit back the y value. What I mean is maybe you want to know what the height is 1 meter from the center. Well, just put x equals 1 inside and solve for y. It'll give you back the height. Or if you have the equation here, you can just look at it. Look at, x equals 4. It would be this high. You can find the height at any point. You don't need to go and measure it. So there's a reason that we do these things. Something I mentioned in the other class, the other section. Most buildings now are first drafted on computer. So you probably have done, an AutoCAD course already if you're not doing it already. Maybe I think you would probably be doing it where you do it on AutoCAD, so you do it by computer. Eventually you get into 3D modeling. So most fancy buildings are done by computer modeling. So of course a parabola is simple. You could probably do it without a computer. But then you see like the crazy buildings that are coming up in Doha. So most recently we have that museum here, which looks like the Desert Rose. And that was clearly modeled on a computer. It's extremely geometrical. It was done on a computer. And after that point, it was made into a physical structure. But with the equation, you can then go from the equation to make something real. It used to be we'd do that backwards. But now we start with the computer most times. The artist and the designer will work together to make a computer program or a computer formula that will make what they want it to make. Now, of course, you can sometimes pull and push things in the program. You don't need to have a math background necessarily. But the computer has the math behind it. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that this stuff actually does go somewhere. Maybe not at this level, but eventually. Okay, let's move on. Number 2 was done by Tom. Again, you're always responsible for those. We just don't have time to do every single thing in class. It's not humanly possible. I'll do question 3 because it's very similar to the last question we did. And I want you to get a good understanding of how to do them. Because maybe I'll give one like this on a test. Let's get started. Let's read it. The entrance to a building is a parabolic arch, 5.6 meters high at the center, 7.4 meters wide at the base. So right away, let me make that blue. This will be giving us the vertex, we'll see in a second. And then it says, what equation represents the arch? So give me the equation of the parabola. So before we start, what form is this going to have? What's the shape of this arch? Is it going to be a x squared form or a y squared form? Is it going to curve to the left and right, or is it going to curve up and down? Well, it's going to be x squared form because this is an arch that you would be expected to walk through. It's the entrance of a building. You're not going to have an entrance that's upside down like this. You're going to have an entrance that starts like, it looks like an arch. So it's going to look like that. So we already know before we start that it's going to have a negative p-value. Okay, it's going to have a negative p-value. Before we start, we know that, but the math will give us that as well. So let's get started. Let's draw our sketch. What do we know? We know that the arch is 5.6 meters high. So somewhere up here, we're going to say that at 0, it goes up by 5.6. And then it's symmetrical, so the arch should look something like this. Doesn't need to be perfect, just make a curve. And then what are our points to the left and right? Well, we're going to do the same thing we did last time. We know that it's 7.4 meters wide from here to there. So what's half of 7.4? Well, I don't need it on a calculator, but I'll calculate it anyways. 3.7. That means this distance is 3.7 meters. It's half. Just like this is 3.7 meters, it would be half. So let's make that point. 3.7 and 0. We don't need anything else. We can finish the problem with that. I'll write the other one over here just to finish it. You could take it if you want a little bit of a challenge, but you don't need to use it. So once again, we needed the vertex. And then in order to get the equation, we need to get everything else. The only other thing we need is 4p. Solve for 4p, you'll stick it in the equation. The equation, what is the equation? The equation is this. Our equation for an x form parabola. Okay? Are you with me so far? I haven't had any, no one said anything for like 5 minutes except for me. Are you okay? Are you all freaking out about your assignment? Hopefully not. Okay. What we're going to do, we substitute all of our points. So let me write that down. We're going to substitute in h and k and our other point, 3.7 and 0. Shouldn't have told you. Sorry. I'm going to put in my two values. So let me put in this. And I'll just label them. This is h, this is k, this is an x value, this is a y value. Just our 2 points that we have. Substitute everything you have. And this is what it's going to look like. 3.7 minus 0 squared is 4p. Our y value is 5.6. Oops, no. I even get these mixed up. Our y value is 0 minus k. What's our k? It's our vertex y value. Okay, so we have everything now that we need in this formula. When we solve this, well, I'll solve it with you. 3.7 squared equals I'll rearrange it first. 4p equals 3.7 squared over negative 5.6. So what's 4p? So whatever that gives me. So 3.7 squared divided by negative 5.6 is negative 2.44. Let me double check, make sure it matches what I think it should be. Yes, it does. And notice that it pops out a negative. That's confirming that it's going up and down like this. It's opening downwards. That's what it means for a parabola. When it has a negative p-value, it opens down. That's a hint for your assignment. Many students miss that part. If the parabola opens left or down, it has a negative p-value. If you don't notice that, you have to give it to the equation yourself. Okay, that's from Sunday's class. All right, we're almost finished. We'll just go from here and finish the equation. What do we write? Well, we write x minus h, which in this case is x squared. 4p is negative 2.44. And then y minus k, y minus 5.6 all squared. Now we're done. Sorry, it's a little bit messy. I'm sure you don't mind. So that's my final equation there. That is the exact same thing as I did in the last question. So now you have two of basically the same question to use as an example of how to do these. Any questions on that? Okay. I'm going to keep on going. A space object. That question was done by Tom. He had a bit of fun with it. He went on a little bit of a space tangent, but it was interesting. I enjoyed it. I always watch his videos just to make sure we covered. I thought it was interesting. I like space too. I don't know if you play video games, but if you like video games and you like space, Kerbal Space Program, amazing. Another game that's very, very good is called Outer Wilds. Not Outer Worlds, not the one made by the Fallout people. Fallout Vegas. Outer Wilds. Check it out. It's amazing. It's my favorite, one of my favorite games of all time. Just saying. Low-key shout out. Let's do number 5. This is also similar to the other question that we did, but slightly different. So let's try to get it done. A tunnel is built in the shape of a parabola, clearly. You can see that. The maximum height will be 13 meters. So we already know the vertex here. So let me draw a line through this. The vertex is at the center, and it goes up by 13 meters. The maximum width is to be 12 meters. So the entire distance this way is 12 meters. What does that mean for the total distance? This should be the easy question now. You should have this figured out. The total distance now must be 6. So this point here will be 6, 0. Need it. You know, we could label this. There's nothing stopping us from using that, but I'm never going to because it's negative. And then we have our point 0, 0. We've got our diagram filled now. What is the vertical clearance, the height of the tunnel, 4 meters from the bottom edge of the tunnel? So let me tell you what that means. It means what is this vertical height? You need to find the x and y values of this point based on this x value. You know, you need to find x and y of that point, really the y value. How far away is that from the center? Well, it would be 2 and 0. Because if the total, if this distance here is 4, and the total distance is 6, it's 6 minus 4, okay? So hopefully that's not too much to take in. That's just some basic geometry. So now that we have our question set up, we can do the rest. I'll repeat what we need to do. First thing, we just need to take a look at our vertex. Second step, we're going to try to find 4p. And really to do that, we just substitute our values into our equation. And the equation, the general equation we're going to use is this. X minus h all squared 4p y minus k. And remember, we're always looking for this 4p for this style of question. So I'm going to leave it to you, take 1 or 2 minutes, put in some values, just see if you can get this. I've already done 2 like this. See if you can get it, because the last step is to find y when x equals 2. All right, so try the first 2 steps, see what you can get. Come back in 2 minutes. Is anybody actually trying this out there, or are you just ignoring everything until I start again? Anybody working on this? Should I just keep going? Okay, good. I'll give you another 15 or 20 seconds. 2.76. What's the 2.76 for? 2.76. 2.76. Yes, 2.77 actually, because we round up that fraction. But yeah, you're right. I agree with you. So that's about 2 minutes. You can of course keep working, but I want to work on this. We need to substitute in the vertex and 6, 0. Really the important thing is the 6, 0. Let's do that. We have 6 minus h. In this case, x, it's h is 0. I'm just going to write the 6. Let's skip a step or 2. It's going to be 6 squared on that side. We need to solve for the 4p. We know what y is. Y in this case is 0. So I'll write it in just so you don't lose it. And then minus k. K in this case is 13. I don't know why I wrote a square here. Sorry about that. I'll keep it there so you can erase it later. This is a mistake. Sorry about that. And we just need to solve for 4p. So it looks like that's what we're going to get. Abdelkader said that. 4p, we have 36 over negative 13, which really means that 4p is something around 2.77, negative 2.77. If you're not getting a negative, something is wrong, because we know that this thing is going downward. So be careful with that. So that's our second step. We should rewrite the equation. So the equation is x squared equals negative 2.77 y minus 13. That's our equation. Now we're not done. We got 4p. We got our equation. We need to actually answer the question, what is the vertical clearance? So what I said to do, we just put x into that formula and solve for y. That will give us, let me be clear here, it takes this x and it'll tell us what the y is. You said you got the same equation but didn't simplify the fraction. Not a problem. You should have got 36 over 13. So that's fine, no problem there. You can keep it. Fractions are no issue at all. So I'll just be clear. Find y when x equals 2. That's what we're doing now. Let's put those numbers in. That's 2 squared, negative 2.77, and we're looking for y. We need to multiply through. We need to do a little bit of simplification here. I'll leave that to you to figure out. We should be able to see that y in this case is about 11.6. So Hamza, you got that. Again, I'm not too surprised when people get the answers now because I do have the full solutions online. They've been there for days. But if you are getting these all on your own, it's fantastic. You should have no issue doing the things that I would ask you to do later. Okay, so this is a little bit different question, but honestly, the only difference was the very last step. And it shouldn't be too much of a surprise. I was given an x value, just find the y value. We'll put it in your equation. You have the equation that relates x and y. That's your function. Put in x as the input. What do you get as the output? 11.6. Okay, does anyone need me or want me to simplify this for you? Or are you okay with that? I'm going to do more questions, but would you like me to simplify that? Kevin, Ibrahim, Sarah, anybody? Nah, where's Yasser? I miss Yasser. Okay, well, that's that. You've got it if you need it. I messed with your head when you kept the square on the starting of the equation. You mean this one? Or do you mean which one? Yeah, my bad. Sorry about that. I'm going to erase it now since I hope everyone saw it. I'm just going to erase this y squared. Totally not my intention to mess you up. I know this is, in my opinion, this is the hardest unit in some ways. If you don't understand all the pieces. For some students, the next unit is the hardest, but I hope that I didn't throw you off too much. Okay, let's keep going. 6 is basically the same. It's just instead of a negative p, you're going to get a positive p. It's the same. It's really the same. You can look at the solutions online and see that it is the same. 7 is a little different, so I'd like to do that, and then I'll probably just do one question after that, and we'll be ready to do the assignment. So let's read this. The primary mirror in a telescope has a parabolic cross-section, so it's going to be a parabola. This, in this case, is an x squared form parabola. And we can see that it has a positive, man, I keep getting those backwards, y squared form, and it has a positive p value, as shown in the figure below. What is the focal length? Well, I'm gonna, spoiler alert, focal length is the distance from the vertex to the focus. The distance from the vertex to the focus is p. That's the definition of p. P is the focal length. Or in other words, distance from the vertex to the focus. Like, that is literally the definition. That is what it means. And so if you can find P, you can solve this problem. The only reason I think students really mess this up is it's difficult for them to see on the diagram what they've been given. But we'll always draw the axis of symmetry through the shape. So we're going to draw straight down here. That's not a very good color. Let me try to make it better. I'm going to draw an axis this way. And I'm going to draw the axis through it like this. And I'll just draw back over it. Okay, so that's our axes. I don't know if that helped or not, but now we can figure out what's what. We can see that the vertex here, just to see that you're following, what is the vertex right now? If that's my axes, You know, if these are my y-axis and x-axis, what's my vertex? Well, it's at the center, so it's at 0, 0. Thanks, Abdulkader. So the vertex is going to be at 0, 0. So h and k are both going to be ignored. We won't even write them later, okay? What else do we know? We know a very specific point. Now this is, I'm not gonna lie, this is a terrible diagram. I mean, look at it. It looks like it was pulled out of some website in 1990. Like, and it probably wasn't even good then. So I get it. I couldn't fix the diagram. I probably could have remade it, but I didn't have the time. So just take it for what it is. What it's trying to tell you is that this distance up here is your x distance. So what we have is this point here. Notice that the x value is 0.00625. Let me write that again. 0.00625. And the y value. What's the y value? Well, the total length is 2.40 meters. That whole length is 2.40 meters. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I got to move things around in order to take some space. That total length is 2.40 meters. So half of the length is 1.2, exactly. 1.2 meters. Hopefully that's not too confusing for you. If it is, you know, practice makes perfect. You have to practice this stuff. You have no chance if you don't practice. Okay, now we have everything we need, believe it or not. I know that it's y squared form, so my form is going to be this. That's all there is to it. Why I noticed, you might notice that I don't have an h and k. They're both equal to 0, so I just didn't include them. Now I just need to substitute in the information that I know. So substitute in 0.00625 and 1.2. If I substitute those in, I'm going to be able to get my p-value. Because again, the whole question was find the p-value. So that's what I'm going to do. Substitute those values in. What do I have? Well, that's 1.2 squared equals 4 times p. And then my x squared. What's x squared? Well, x is 0.00625. Wait. Thank you, Abdulkader. There's no square on the x. Of course there's not. It's not a hyperbola. It's a linear, it's a parabola. I'm sorry. It's been a long week. And we're just coming off hyperbolas, so my brain is just as fried as some of yours. There's no square. I'm so sorry. There's no square on that x. Now we can continue. So what I would like to do here, what I would normally do, is I would say 1.2 squared on the left side. That's 1.44. On the right side, I like to multiply these two things together. So I'm just going to multiply them. 4 times 0.0065. That'll give 0.025, and I'm going to keep the p there. There's many ways to simplify this. That's just one way. And then I can just divide both sides by this to give p. 1.44 divided by that is 57.6. So the answer is 57.6 meters. That's the focal length. That's the difference between the vertex and the focus. I'm very sorry about the x squared. That was not my intention. I'm going to end up making people confused. Not my intention. Okay, how do I feel about that? Maybe a little too much yellow on the page, but at least it's consistent. Anybody? I'll take that as a yes. You can always watch the video again later if you need to. I'm going to do one last question. 8 will be for homework. It's very similar to the other parabola questions. I want to do 9. And then it'll be time to do the assignment. Your assignment opens at 2:10, so you'll have time to do that. And just as a reminder, the assignment is 40 minutes, 40, with an extra 10 minutes on the end to submit to the Dropbox. So really you have almost 50 minutes. That's plenty of time, okay? Just stay focused when you do it. So let's do this. The only thing we really need, we know that we have an elliptical. Did you actually have a question, Hajar, or did you click that by accident? Okay, I'll just assume that there's an accident. Okay, so it's an ellipse. The culvert, the object we're talking about, is 18 meters wide. Let me get my colors. 18 meters wide and 2 meters high. This is an ellipse. If it's 18 meters wide and 12 meters high, this is what it's going to look like. Let me make a better sketch. Go through the center. We know that the distance here, that's 18 meters. And so half of this must be 9 meters. That means A is 9. That means this is 6 meters. That means B is 6. The major axis in total is 18. Let me be clear here. If 2A is the size of the major axis, then A is 9. If 2B is the size of the minor axis, then B is 6. And so we'll use those to get A squared, which is what we always need from an ellipse, and B squared, which is what we always need from an ellipse. And we're done, actually. We're pretty much done. Let's look at this. Our equation for an ellipse looks like this. I know that this has the A term because it's stretched in the x direction, and A is the bigger stretch, y. And I just fill in my values. What's h and k? Well, because of the way I set this up, the center is 0. So it's very fast. X squared over 81 plus y squared over 36 equals 1. The 81 is our A, 36 is our B. And she's finished. I went through that one quicker than I normally would go through a question because I want to make sure you have plenty of time to do the assignment, get in there, not waste any time. I hope it's clear. You won't, of course, have questions like this on your assignment. You very much will have at least one question like this on your test. But on Sunday, I'll tell you clearly what types of questions to expect on the test, at least in general. Okay, so I'll stop the recording here, and then any questions you have, I'll answer them. Okay, bye-bye, everybody in the World Wide Web.